Hello, everybody. Welcome to X-tricated. I am KB, and with me here is DDB.
Hello everyone, how are you guys? How is everything going now? KB, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good.
How's your weekend going?
My weekend is going well. It's going well. I just realized that the money that we're using in the economy is basically credit, and it's not really money that we're using. It's complicated. I just got to know that
So,
the the money that we're making, right, as a global economy is $100 trillion. I think visual capital that said that, and I was like, oh, that's really good. But then I went and checked the debt profile of the world is over $300 trillion.
so I can see that the regular people's problems don't affect you currently because
Why?
every
No,
other
no,
person
no, no,
is
no,
just
no,
trying.
no,
Every
no,
other person
no.
is just trying to relax with their weekend and
Let me raise my hand up and tell everybody it's KB that is insinuating this. I am not the person that is insinuating this. You heard it from KB, not me. Before anybody comes to my DM
but
and
I have to
start
point
begging
it
me,
out now.
point out
I have
what
to point
you
it
have nothing to point out, young man. You have nothing to point out.
out.
Let's move further. Let's move further.
Okay, sir. So, I I can see that probably he was getting excited about what we have to discuss
Mm.
today. So
I'm
maybe
actually
that's why he
excited.
was going for
I'm actually
that.
excited.
So,
Yeah.
so last week we started a conversation about the economic machine. We're taking a look at how things are, how we can break down what the economy is all about. So, David, can you give us a little recap on what we did last week?
Yes. So we started this journey last week, right? Just explaining the economy, right, as a machine, right? So we mentioned that it's simple but a little bit complex, and it works like a machine. And the bedrock of that machine is basically transactions, and transactions happen between two parties, right? Someone that sells and someone that buys. So the person that sells will get money, right? In exchange, the person will give somebody goods and products. You understand? And at the end of the day, we also got to know that spending can happen in either credit or in money wise. And went into details to explain um, how credit works, and how it happens between lenders and borrowers, and that on its own is also a transaction, right? Because lenders want to make more money with the money that they have. So one of the best ways for them to do that is to lend people the money, and then people that want to buy things that they cannot afford right now, they go and then they borrow, right? And we also mentioned credit worthiness. So if you earn more and you have assets, right, you you are credit worthy because lenders, right, want to give you money because they believe in you. They believe that you have the capacity to give them back their money, right? And that's basically it. And we said today um, we're going to talk about productivity growth and short-term debt cycle. And then next week we're going to really go deep into long-term debt cycle, because that's a whole lot, and you're going to realize a lot of things about the economy, right? When we talk about long-term debt cycle. Yeah.
Exactly. So, let's start on productivity growth. Before we talk about productivity growth, we need to know about productivity, right? I mean, the term productivity is not uncommon to us. It's being used a lot, especially people trying to be better at what they do, maybe at work or at school and stuff like that. You talk about being more productive. So when you talk about being more productive, you're talking about increasing your efficiency essentially in whatever it is that you're doing. So, in the context of economics, this efficiency that we're talking about, we have the relation between the output and the unit input. So what this means is that you are measuring what you've produced, from your economy in relation to what you've put in. So if you are to calculate your productivity, you are basically dividing output by input. So you're trying to look at it like, was your input worth it? Like, have you gotten the bang for your buck, basically? So for example, like, okay, we have like three different ways, that some people measure productivity to three different ways that people measure productivity. You have the labor productivity, you have capital productivity, you have total factor productivity. So basically, when you talk about the inputs, inputs in production, you're talking about the factors of production most times. You're talking about, you're talking about land, you're talking about capital, you're talking about the labor. So when you talk about labor productivity, you're measuring the productivity of your economy or of your business or of your company or whatever it is. But you're measuring that based on the workforce that you have under you. You have, and what factors come into to the labor, to the workforce. You're having things like education, basically their level of education, how fit are they, to run what's this. So like, if they are not appropriately educated, how can they run the jobs that you want them to do? Is it experience? Experience also matters aside from education too. Years of doing something can also affect the way you go about an activity in respect to production. Same thing, the technological assistance. A doctor a doctor will not perform surgery with his bare hands. That would not be productive. You have to have the equipment, and even more than that, a doctor who has a better who has better facilities will perform better than a doctor that has maybe just a. I said doctor. Maybe I think it would be better if I say surgeon. A surgeon that has just his scalpel blade and the suture material. So that's just an example. Also capital productivity. It's not just, when you think about capital, you may think about just money, but then it's not just money. When you talk about a business, you talk about all the things required to run that business. Let's say you own a factory, a bread making factory. Oh, a bread making factory, a bakery. You own a bakery, so your ovens in that bakery are also part of your capital. You understand?
Yeah.
Everything that you put into production at that point, that's your capital. So you also have your total factor productivity. This total factor productivity measures other things, other factors that are not captured under labor or capital. Other factors that can affect your production level, your productivity, but are not necessarily tied to the traditional factors of production that you know. So you have things like education in your country. Things like disasters. Are there disasters in your country? Is there
Yeah.
drought? Is drought affecting your farm production? You
Yeah.
understand?
Yes.
Insecurity ravaging the region that your farmers cannot go to farm. Those kind of things are also considered when you're trying to measure productivity using total factor productivity. So productivity. So you see how important productivity. You know what productivity is now. So
Yeah.
we're going to talk about
And
productivity growth.
yeah, that's true. And in a transaction, right? When we started talking about the economy, as I mentioned earlier, now, right? In a transaction, right, you have to give something in order to get something, and
Exactly.
how much you get depends on how much you actually produce as an individual, right? Well, that
Yeah.
might not be true in all cases, right? Because we're going to find out. So over time, we learn that accumulated knowledge raises our standard of living. Yeah, and we call that
Yes.
productivity growth. Now, that's productivity growth as individuals, as a state, as a country, as a global economy, right? So, those who are inventive, that's what we're being told, right? Is that those who are inventive and hardworking raise their productivity and their standard of living faster than those who are complacent and lazy. And that isn't true. Actually, it's not all the time that is true, right? Over the short run. Over the long run is true, but not over the short run, because productivity matters in the long run, but guess what? This is where credit is very important. Credit matters most in the short run. Yes, credit matters
Yes.
most in the short run. Now,
Remember, we talked about credit towards the end of our last podcast
yes,
episode.
yeah,
So this is how it will link to productivity growth now,
yes,
or
because
how it lines up against productivity growth.
yeah, because productivity growth does not fluctuate much, right? As your productivity growth is predictable. If you work more, you're going to be productive. It's that one is true, right? But that only happens. That shows only in the long run, not in the short run. So now it is not a big
But
driver of the economic
if
swings.
you work more, do you necessarily are you necessarily more productive if you work more?
Not really, not really actually. So if you look at it, right,
Because
it depends, right? It
uh,
depends on what you actually invest in when you say work, right? So
yes,
if you work, are you working to increase your capacity? If you're working to increase your capacity in the long run, yes, definitely your productivity is going to grow.
you know,
But if you're working on something
um,
that does not matter, I don't think it's going to increase.
I mentioned something about labor productivity,
Yes.
and how labor productivity is usually calculated is usually like a ratio between the GDP, the ratio of GDP of hours worked by the labor. But if you actually think about the global economic down,
Yes.
um, you will see that productivity was not really affected, even though the economy was at recession, even though hours reduced.
Mm-hmm.
The hours reduced
Yes.
because, number one, you have more people being laid off. You understand? You have more people being laid off, so that means obviously the hours that you will have gotten from those people is no longer there. Those hours are no longer there.
Yes.
So did you replace them with more hours? Everybody is laying off employees, so they're trying to cut costs. So you are not going to be hiring more employees. So you are not replacing those hours. So they found other ways to increase their productivity. So I don't
Yes.
think productivity productivity is tied to the amount of
Work.
hours you work, how long
Okay.
you work, or whether you work
Okay.
more,
So it's
or
just
whether you
it's
work
just
from
the
home.
quality. It's just basically the quality of how you actually improve yourself over time, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So as I was saying, right, as I said, because productivity growth does not fluctuate much, right, meaning it is not a big driver of economic swings, right. So debt is a big driver of economic swings, which means credit is, right, because one, debt allows you to consume more than you produce when you acquire it, right. That's one. And then two, it also forces you to consume less than you produce when you have to pay it back. Because if you have what's it called now, if you just borrow money, for example, right, it allows you to spend more, right, than than when you acquire it, than what you produce as an individual, right. And it also forces you to consume less. So when you're about to pay it back, you get you have to reduce your spending and you have to pay back your debt. You understand? So now if you look at
Exactly.
if you look at it in a very broader perspective, it's more like saying you are actually borrowing from your future self. You understand? Depending on what you do with the money that you borrowed. Because if you borrow money, for example, now, and later on you make more money, and you buy something that is going to increase your income, and then later you came and made money. At the end of the day, you still remove money from your account from the income that you made, right, from the borrowing that you borrowed, and then you pay it back. You understand? So
Exactly.
that explains the fact that of how debt is, because it actually like creates a swing, and then there's a cycle around that. You understand? So now, right? While most people feel the swings, they don't see them as cycles, right? Because they see them up too close, not as a day by day or week by week or month by month. You don't really see them as a long thing, let's say year or let's say 5 years thing. But if you look at it on the bigger scale, it is actually, because if you borrow money today and then you have to pay it next month, the same day, right? On the 16th of October, you have to pay it on the 16th of November, right? So that is up too close, because you borrow it now, you spend more this month, and then next month you have to make sure that you spend less. You have a little budget, and then you pay back your debt, because now that means that it forces you to consume less, right, than you
Yes,
produce.
exactly.
Yes.
That is why it is a cycle self, because at one point you're having more than you even earn, but at another point you are at that point you are spending more than you can earn. But at one point you now have to spend less than you earn. So that, and for that's for yourself, because in the end you even spend more than you earn if you think about it, because you are also paying back a debt. You understand? So it's like something has gone up and it now has to come down. So that is why it's even a cycle. It's not, it's not a
Yeah,
straight
and
line of like.
coming back to that economic swing, as I mentioned, right? Economic swings happen not because of hard work or innovation, right? Economic swings happen, right? Or they depend on how much credit there is in the economy. Just
Yeah,
imagine,
so
just
that's the
imagine an
major
economy,
difference. That's
imagine an economy
productivity.
without credit. Imagine an economy without credit, now can be KB, right? In the economy,
Mm,
the only way I can increase my spending is to increase my income, right? Which requires me
productivity.
to be more
Yeah,
productive. You understand? So, and I can't borrow money from anybody, right? To like become good. So there won't be like a lot of economic swings like that, like when there is credit, because when there's credit, basically almost everybody has access to that credit, and then when they have credit, depending on how productive they are, right, they can actually shoot their income, how their income rises or how it reduces. You get?
true. That is very true. So like we've mentioned already, like we need both productivity growth and debt credits basically for an economy to expand. So if there were, like we said, if there were to be an economy that has no access to credit or has no provisions for credits, basically you rely a lot on productivity growth for the growth of your economy. So if your productivity fails to grow, it means that there is now a limit in the potential gains that you can get. So, if I don't increase my productivity, I cannot increase my income. You know,
Yeah,
I cannot
that's
increase my. You understand? If I don't increase the efficiency with which I work, let's say I'm a corporate worker now. If I don't increase the efficiency with which I do my work, I will not get promoted. If I don't get promoted, my income will not increase. Understand?
yeah.
And therefore, I will not be able to increase my spending to also basically give other people. So basically, what is it at that point is that I cannot buy more expensive stuff. So if I can't buy the stuff, the people that are selling them won't make anything.
Yes,
You understand?
that's very
If
true.
that person doesn't make anything too, the other person that they will probably buy something from will not be able to, gain money too. And if
Yes.
when all this happens, you are not able to raise the living standards in your country or as a person. So the important thing at this point is to increase spending. And how can you increase spending? That is where credit comes in, like we mentioned.
Yes.
So when you talk about increased spending, most times it's influenced, it is fueled purely by credit. Most of the money that we see in circulation today is technically not money, it is credit. Because like you even mentioned when we started this video,
Yes.
the money, the world is in debt. You understand? Sometimes people even wonder, like, who are we owing the money to? Are we owing Thanos? So, but the thing is that, like we mentioned, credit can be created out of thin air. You
Mm,
understand? So
yes.
just to increase the spending so that to allow for economic expansion. You understand?
Yes.
So if I take credits today, the amount of money I can spend increases. Let's say I earn 150,000 naira a month, and I want to and I decide to take credits. So if I take credits, I can maybe spend, let's say, up to 200,000 naira per month. That is me spending higher than I even earn. You understand? The ability I now have the ability to spend more than I earn. You understand?
Yes.
So let's say more people also like me are doing the same thing. They also have an increased spending power. So when the amount of spending, the amount of spending and also income increases faster than the quantity of the goods that are produced,
Yes.
prices will increase. You
Yeah.
understand?
Yes.
When prices increase for a very long time, that's why I start talking about inflation.
Inflation.
You understand?
Yes. Yeah.
No, this is basically price elasticity of demand. You understand? If
Yes.
demand is higher than the supply, the prices will go up.
Yes.
Now,
And
so
and then the central bank doesn't want too much of inflation because it causes problem.
inflation,
So as
that is
prices
coming again.
so as prices rise, what they do is that the central bank raises interest rates, right, which makes
Exactly.
people less willing to borrow, right, and at the end of the day, it makes fewer people to afford credit. Only few people can be able to afford credit. Only people that have the money will be able to afford credit.
Yeah,
So
exactly. It's like
that
it's like dating parents now.
yes,
People, you will not want to buy something that is too expensive. No, on a normal day, if
yes,
you are used to buying something for maybe 100 naira, and you go somewhere and they tell you that this thing is 250 naira now, you'll be like,
mm-hmm.
when did this thing increase this much? You'll be like,
Exactly,
we can't I do without it? You decide not
yeah,
to
exactly,
at that point.
and then
So because
and
of this increased interest rates now, you have what's it called? Spending and income basically are now like dropping, and the faster they drop, the faster the prices will drop too.
yeah, so people
Understand?
people
So,
borrow less. People borrow less in that period. People pay back their
mm,
debt, and less, and
yeah,
then people paying back their debt is called debt repayment, right? And then less money is there to spend, so spending slows
okay,
down, right? Which means
yeah,
income of other people also drop because businesses, government, the what's it called? Goods and services are not being bought because people do not have money to spend because no
mm.
borrowing. So which
if
means
if
people
you're
that
if you're a businessman, at that point where people are no longer spending
yeah
as they normally do,
your
you know,
income reduces.
but you want to like get rid of your goods some one way or the other now, so you have to drop your prices.
Yes,
You
exactly.
understand? Those
So
prices
and
that were higher, so now they have to
yes,
come down again.
exactly, and we call
Mm-hmm.
that deflation. We call that deflation.
Exactly.
And then when that happens, right, when that deflation happens, guess what will happen, right? Economic activity will decrease because of deflation, and we call that recession.
Yes.
Yeah, and when
And at the point of recession,
yeah,
the central bank comes in again.
ah,
And let us help people out. So let us lower interest rates again.
yes.
So you can see that even the people that have not finished paying off the debts that they owe will probably want to look for more credits. You
Yeah, and they'll
understand?
start borrowing again. You see,
Because
that's
now
human
it's
nature.
because now credit is it's cheaper. It's
Yes,
cheaper to get credit. They are
yes.
lower interest in our hands. So there's nothing. The deterrence is no longer there.
Mm.
So you'll be more willing to take a loan and stuff like that.
You're not
Your spending
compelled to
power.
pay back your debts, but you're more compelled to go and borrow back. So debt repayment is reduced, and then borrowing
Mm-hmm.
is increased, spending increases, and then income rises because, as we said, businesses will start getting more money. People will start like going out to spend a lot of money and all that, and that's how another economic expansion again starts, as KB mentioned earlier. Because the thing is a cycle, right?
Yeah.
Economic expansion starts, right? And when credit is easily available, right? But then when credit isn't easily available, there's a recession. And then know that SIBA, this circle is primarily controlled by the central bank. And the
Yeah.
short term debt cycle now is what we just explained, right? Because it starts from one economic expansion, to recession and then another economic expansion, and this is controlled by the central bank. And guess what? That period, right? That period when those three things happen is between 5 to 8 years. That is called the short-term debt cycle. You understand? Now, but know this: at the end of each 5 to 8 year cycle, there is more debt than the previous cycle, right? Of
Yeah.
short-term debt, term debt cycle, because the debt from the previous cycle was not completed. Remember, it was not completely repaid when another
Yeah.
economic expansion started. Because if you listen very well, we said something about people not compelled when the central bank lowered the interest rate. People are not compelled to pay back their debt again, and the debt that they had before is still there, and they go back and borrow again, and this keeps happening. So, which means the more this cycle continues, the more debt increases. Income rises, yes,
Mm.
borrowing rises, but then debt also increases over time. You understand? But
And that's
so
why we discovered what we discovered earlier.
yes, exactly, because that's how you know that whatever is inside the economy right now, it's basically credit over time. Right? What is circulating right now in the economy is basically credit, because you've not paid your debt keeps rising, your income, and the funny thing is that your debt are actually rising faster than your income. You don't know that, but it actually keeps rising faster than your income, and that is very true for basically every state, every government, every economy that we have around.
Yes, even the companies, the private companies too.
Yes, that's
They have they might be in that situation too.
yeah,
You
yeah.
have more credits than actual money.
But
You know.
but KB,
So,
but KB, does that mean that debt is actually bad?
well. Credits or debts in
Yeah, in
whatever
whatever
sense you want.
sense, whether credit or debt, is it a
Um,
bad thing?
it is not necessarily a bad thing. It just depends on what you use your credit for. Initially when we started this conversation last week, we talked about people taking credits to buy things that they can't afford. You know,
Yes.
sometimes it's something that you can easily pay back. Based on your income. You understand?
Yes.
Usually, I remember we talked about credit worthiness.
Yes.
So
Yes.
a person who is credit worthy, like I even mentioned earlier, like I said, I can be like any 150,000 naira, then I can decide to maybe take credit, and I can be able to spend 200,000 naira at the end of that month. So it is possible for me to be able to pay back that extra money out of my future salary. You understand?
Yes.
And we've already talked about that. Increasing your spending power, but then reducing it in the future. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So that might be okay. It might be okay, but it is one thing that you actually have to realize is that credit is important. It's an important driver of the economy, yes. And what is the end goal in your economy is to be more productive. So you taking credits you should do so in mind with the intention that, okay, you're trying to increase productivity, you're trying to produce something, you're trying to produce a good, you're trying to offer a service. So I can give you an example. Someone can take a loan. Let's say I take a loan of 200,000 naira to buy a television. I can decide to sit at home watching that television. I remember I took a loan to get that TV. I didn't use my own money. I didn't have the money to buy it. I just took the loan and I decided to buy the television. I just sat down at home and just like kept on watching TV. You understand? Not doing anything productive in my time. That's a waste of credit, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So if that same TV, that same 200,000 naira loan that I just talked about now, somebody can use it and buy that same TV. Then they decide that make they want to use it in a v- to as a TV for a viewing center for people to come and watch
Yeah.
football or other
Or
things.
even
You understand?
or even a
Or
gaming center.
exactly, you understand. You gain income from that. After a while, you make back that 200,000 naira. You can pay your debt, and then you still be making profits off of that TV. You
Yes.
understand?
Yes.
Being productive with that TV. You understand?
Yeah.
So in a sense, it might be bad, but but if you think about it, it's not really a bad thing because in the end, you are expanding economy. You are leading to economic growth. You understand? We
and
know
that
you
and that explains why
economic prosperity, basically.
the world is actually in more debt than it actually has more income, because most economies, what most countries, what they do is that they get more, they go and acquire credit, right, acquire debt, because they actually want to implement certain projects that are going to make more money in the long run. And that's why people that
Yeah.
lend them the money actually likes to lend them, they like to lend them the money. And an example is, we're both Arsenal fans, right? This we saw this visit Rwanda. It's what they did was, what Rwanda did was that he went to UK and then he borrowed money. Is it UK that he borrowed money from?
Yeah. They
Okay,
got. I won't really call it. I don't know if it was actually like in lending. Maybe most likely to be lending though, sure,
okay,
but they call it
uh-huh.
aid. I don't know whether when they say aid, I don't know whether they mean they mean aid, or they mean
No, I think if it's
or they
aid,
mean that
if
they are
it's aid,
borrowing
it's not.
money.
It was not credit, by the way. If it's aid, but then right, this is just let's just take that as aid, as credit, right? Imagine they gave him
Mm.
credit, and then what he did was that he just immediately, what he took that credit, he went back and invested it into Visit Rwanda. Visit Rwanda is on the sleeves of Arsenal, right? And guess what? Arsenal has a global fan base that is like one of the best, one of the top five in the world, right? Why? Because in
Yeah,
Africa, Arsenal have a huge Arsenal fan base, and in Asia, and as well as United States of America, right? So it means that Visit Rwanda is always seen on a global stage. So it invites people
yeah,
to
that's
visit
very true.
Rwanda. It invites people to go and see what Rwanda is, and then he invested that into that branding of Rwanda, and he also invested that into the tourism of Rwanda. And guess what? It has
Yeah.
actually paid a good benefit to the country in the long run.
It's just like they say, build it and they shall come. But
Yes.
he had built it, he had laid the infrastructure, he had laid everything
Yeah,
out.
but he had to bring
So,
people.
but you have to put out the word one way or the
Yeah.
other, and
Yes.
obviously he made use of us now, one of the biggest teams in the world,
Yeah.
to to push that brand, basically brand recognition. So that's basically what happened. But even like some people looked at it at the time and they're like, oh, this is what is the
Mm-hmm.
point of this? They
A
started,
lot of people were
I
even.
think even within the UK Parliament. I don't know. I can't remember who it was, but I heard the person started like Boris Johnson.
Even me, that
So,
it's only Boris
I
Johnson that
don't
can say
know.
that, that
I don't
stuff.
know. I don't know who it was though. But then like he sounded very angry because he blew very hot about UK wasting money on African countries, that they just you give them aid and they just blow the money on
Yeah,
nonsense
yes,
basically. And
yes.
that's because like what like, to and at that point where I actually saw it was on Twitter, and I saw many Nigerians and Africans retweeting that.
And we're
You understand?
actually,
Like
that, to be
you
honest,
understand?
I'll actually tell you
And
the
this
truth, but I actually agreed with it at that point in time. But later on, I came out on the side. I said, "Oh my God, this guy has sense."
Yeah,
Because if
most times it's not easy. It's not
yeah,
easy to see somebody's plan. Like I usually say
yes,
sometimes, like there's a method to someone's madness. Sometimes you
mm-hmm.
just have to actually sit down and analyze what they're trying to do to see, okay, then when you've analyzed it completely, you can now understand better, okay, whether, okay, is this a good decision or is this a bad decision? You understand?
Yeah,
You can take the same thing with Nigeria. Nigeria has a lot of debts, but people still keep borrowing us
more
money.
money. That's the thing.
Why do
Yes,
you think that is? We mentioned that if you are credit worthy, you'll be
yeah,
able to you have access you have
yes,
access to loans, you have access to
yes,
more loans and even better interest rates sometimes.
yes,
And so it's because like this current administration has focused more on, like, their priority has been on infrastructural development.
yes,
That has been a priority, their main
yeah,
priority. Other things
yeah.
have like they have come in um um you know second place basically.
That's true.
So other countries, they are watching, they are looking at you, they are saying, okay, this money that we are giving you as loan, how are you putting it to work? You understand?
Yes.
So it also makes me think about this industrial action by ASU over the past few months.
Yes.
The talk with people, they've asked for revitalization of universities, upgrading of salaries of the lecturers, and this and that. So,
Yes.
a person in the government mentioned it earlier. I don't know whether it was the Minister of Labor or who mentioned that. He said that the country cannot borrow to pay salaries. You understand? It's that's borrowing for consumption. You cannot be borrowing to pay salaries. You have to,
Yes, that's very true.
it's put you don't have anything tangible to show for what you should show that.
That point, this productivity growth and credit thing, right, into what's it called, into the like right frame of mind, because what ASU is doing is not bad, right? But if you give ASU
Mm,
stuff, if you give ASU that money, that fund right now, yes, it's going to help, but it's going to help the productivity growth alone. It's not going to help the country do like get more
yeah,
income faster,
especially
or
in the
exactly.
sense of vitalization. You understand, like maybe
Exactly.
you can actually create more productivity in the universities if you do revitalization. But like
Yes.
you're talking about now, like the country is more concerned with actually increasing
And then
the
you not even
income.
see, and then you not even see the result of this revitalization fund till in the
Yes,
next five,
you know, you
ten,
know,
5, 10 years. Yeah,
actually,
you won't even see it.
this actually brings me to another point. But
Uh,
with every government, every government wants to show what they've done. You understand?
mm-hmm.
So it makes sense that, okay, no, it's not that it makes sense, so but then but it actually, if you try to understand the thinking, you want to increase the income faster,
Yes, yes.
long game.
Mm-hmm.
If you invest more in like education today, you might not be there when the thing pays off. You understand?
Yes.
Nobody, and people might not even really remember you. That this is what you did. Even in fact, at this point, self, I talked about the infrastructural projects and what have you.
Yes.
There are
You
so many other things that have discredited this government like very, very hard. So you might not even, by the time they go, you might not even look at the infrastructure, the progress they've made in
I want to
infrastructural
play I
development.
want to play devil's advocate a little bit here, right?
Mm,
What I want to play here is that, guess what? For me, I think, right, what they are doing is right. The way they are spending money on certain things, they are right. If they have continuity, if they go ahead and continue doing what they are doing, it's good, it's bad. But then look at it, they have certain projects that they've invested money in, and if you also look at it, they've diverted the country's economy from crude oil down to other things. They've diversified the economy. And guess
mm.
what? Over that period of time, Nigeria has actually had more income than before.
Yes,
If you
and
understand,
in
if you
the
get.
end, if you even think about it to self, you might not even see they as the government right now. Actually, I'm speaking from that point of view. You might not
Yes.
see the full potential of what you've done, or like the full result of what you've done
Yes.
until many years later. You understand?
Yes.
But sometimes ego, many leaders have ego, so you want to blow your trumpet about your legacy and this and that.
Yes, that's
So
very
most
true.
times, and in politics, there's just like in sports, there's recency bias. It
Mm-hmm.
happens a lot when it comes to politics too.
Yes.
It's always, what have you done for me lately? You
Yes,
understand?
exactly.
So,
And that's the human nature
mm-hmm.
of citizens. We want something now, right? We don't look at it
Yeah.
on long run. You understand, right?
So,
Yes.
sometimes governments get distracted by that, and decide to focus on things that they can do to increase short term, to show short term progress rather than long term progress.
Yeah.
So,
But
all those things happen. In the end, this is why, where I talked about economics last week. I said that it doesn't.
there's opportunity
Most
cost,
people,
right?
most people think. Yes, most people think of economics at the highest level, but they don't think about it because
On the
as
lowest
the
level.
government all the decisions, having opportunity cost here and there,
Mm,
choosing to spend on infrastructure rather than spend on education, choosing to
mm-hmm,
spend on military rather than spend on health. All those are
yes.
all of them are opportunity costs.
Mm-hmm,
As the government is doing that, you are also doing that in your own life. You are
yeah.
choosing whether you're going to buy this thing. You're going to buy a laptop, or you want to go to, like I said last week, you want to buy a laptop, or you want to go and that's your December when December comes. You know, all those type of things. So you just have to, everything is a decision. That is what economics is all about.
Yeah.
So you cannot avoid decision making when it comes to economics. It is part of human nature. So don't just think that, oh, it is only for the people at the top. Even you too, you actually have to make tough decisions. Maybe your decisions might not might not hold as much weight as that of the president of the country,
Yeah.
but still it affects you. In fact, it affects you more than the decision that the president will make.
Yeah.
Understand?
At the
There are
end
some
of
decisions
at,
that,
at the end
for
of
as
the
long
day,
as you
right?
live,
At the
as
end
long
of
as
the
you live in this world, there are some decisions that will be made by governments that come in and go out that will never affect you.
That's the truth. But at the end of the day,
So,
right, I like this discussion because it highlights something for us as individuals that no matter what we do, right, no matter how we spend, we should also think critically and say, okay, fine, that thing that I'm buying right now, is it going to be an asset for me, or is it going to be a liability for me? Am I
yes,
am I getting something that is going to help me on the long run, or is it that I want to just make money fast, right? There's a people that just want to make money fast, but guess what? In the long run, when you make money fast, you're going to fall into this part where people are going to start calling you incompetent, because you make money fast, you understand, and you don't have that capacity. Your productivity is not growing. You understand? There are some
yeah,
people that actually do make the money fast, but then as they're making the money fast, they are making sure that they're increasing their capacity as their money increases. You understand? So
mm,
that also says
yeah,
for certain companies too. Certain companies make money fast, but at the same time, they make sure that they also increase their capacity as a company. And that's why if you look at it in 2008, the market crashed, right? And even in 2027, when the market crashed to some extent, right, some companies left, and then some companies crashed because, one, yes, they were making money, but then when those crash came, they were not able to actually manage certain things.
mm,
And then they went extinct. So what you do is that, yes, make money fast, but make sure that as you're making that money fast, increase your productivity, right? So that your productivity growth increases as your money increases, so that whenever a crash comes, and we're going to explain that it's called deleveraging, right? When that happens, right, you're going to have a beautiful deleveraging, and you're going to really, really enjoy it, because everything comes back to like a fresh start, and then your business continues because it's not extinct; it just continues.
exactly.
Yeah,
So we'll look at that. We'll talk about that more when we talk about long-term debt cycle
yeah,
next week.
yeah,
So this brings us to the end of today's episode,
yeah,
and I like to thank you all for listening so far. You've learned us a listening ear. You've been the
yeah.
lender to us. So we'd like to thank you for that, and we'd like to tell you to keep listening. Tune in for next week where we complete this series.
Yeah,
We'll talk about so what we've basically done is to try to understand the economy better and see how each component works. That is why we call it the economic machine. That's why that was the intention behind it. We wanted to break everything down because every machine has its components and how it works. So as we are able to look at those components and what the function or what their functions are, you know, we are able to understand economy better. Something as complex as economy, we are able to break it down. So that's what we've been doing. That's what we did last week. That's what we've done today, and that's what we are going to complete by next week. So we thank you for listening to us, and we'd like you to tune in next week too, as we complete, and for further episodes too, because we talk about not just economics but also politics, governance, and everything that affects us basically as humans, within our countries and around the world. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time. Bye.
bye bye.